Peace world, what's good? It's Wyking once again. Africatown Media Studios here at Black Dot Underground in the building for another episode. And you know, as we always do, we have a special guest in the building today.
Yes, sir.
Man, our special guest today is a Seattle CD, Africatown son, a Garfield grad.
Yeah.
World-renowned musician and composer, founder and CEO of Arunga Music.
That's right.
The Sultan of Swag and the Sweet Prince of the Ghetto.
Hello.
Owuor Arunga. Welcome, my brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Glad you
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Man, and we're gonna have this good convo.
I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm thankful for it. I'm appreciative of it. Getting this opportunity to converse with you is very special for me. And it just has to be said right quick.
Likewise, I mean,
you true to the game. You true to the game, bro.
One of our own could jump off a plane and then come through the Africatown Media Studios. We really appreciate we appreciate that, man.
Yeah, it's Africatown. That you got to come home, right?
Yes, sir. So, man, I'm looking forward to, getting into some of the issues and things of that nature. But, for those that don't know, I mean, I spoke to a few of the things, but, share with the listeners, man, and the viewing audience, a little bit about your journey to this point.
Yeah, I'd say for me, I consider myself or my life purpose to be about learning. So, my whole life I've been a student, I've been a student of life, of music, and of art, of beauty, of parenting, everything that I am, I'm a student of. And that journey's taken me into a lot of places. I started in Kenya. I was born in Kenya. My parents are from the United States and Kenya. My mother's from, her parents are from Oklahoma and Louisiana. My father's parents are from a place called Kokoth, South Nyanza, Karachuonyo. And my father came to the United States. Before him, my uncle, John Arunga, made his way to the United States and was part of the Kennedy Airlifts, which was an initiative by the U.S. State Department to send, the first tier of African intellectuals, so Nkrumah, all the first doctors, all the first people who studied. And my uncle kind of like opened the door for people like my father to come next. And my parents met at the University of Washington during a time of like divestment in South Africa, during a time where, people like Larry Gossett was active at the University of Washington, implementing a new way of how the curriculum would be ran with respect to African history and Black studies. And it was just that cesspool that I was born out of. So that was the headspace that I was born into. And that focus has been kind of like a North Star in my life through the music. So I was born in Kenya, and that was an amazing experience. By the time I turned 10, I moved to the United States. And I got to the United States. I went to, it's called Thurgood Marshall Elementary School now.
So you came to the Central District?
Yeah, I came to Africatown,
all right,
to be specific. And the school is called Thurgood Elementary School now, but at that time it was called Coleman. And I went to Coleman Elementary School, and there I started my musical journey. The first person who got me my first trumpet was my grandparents, and Geneva Godot Tate and Eddie Tate, R.I.P., may their souls rest in peace. They put me onto this music and supported me. My parents were still in Africa, and I started on that journey, and they pushed me, gave me all the resources I needed to be successful in that. And after that, I went to Washington Middle School also in Africatown on Jackson. And I studied with a man called Robert Nat, and he was my sensei. He was my master. He taught me about dynamics. He taught me about timing. He taught me about discipline, about dedication. He taught me how to humble myself, how to work hard, what mastery truly was, not accepting mediocrity, but really, wanting to be your best self and present your best self. And he was a graduate of Grambling University, which he and Clarence Acox, which was my teacher at Garfield High School, which is also in Africatown, both came to Seattle during a time where their generation was filling the quota for affirmative action, right? Mm. And Seattle got blessed with two of the greatest educators. I'm not by my words. This is just by the amount of awards, the amount of brains they've taught, the amount of lives they've changed, the amount of art they've put into the community in Africatown, So those are my senseis in high school. After that, I moved to New York. I started studying with Charlie Persip, Reggie Workman, Jimmy Owens, Chico Freeman, Chico Hamilton, Ahmed Abdullah. I just got an opportunity to study with the Africatown of New York.
Yeah, and that's funny that you say that, you know what I mean, because this is where our paths first crossed.
Yeah.
At what, New School, Hunter
exactly,
College or
yeah.
something? At
the New School University
Dead
College.
Prez show
yeah.
or something like that.
Exactly. and that Dead Prez album was a monumental point in my life. When I heard the Dead Prez album, I bought the Dead Prez album, I bought Slum Village Volume 2, and I bought D'Angelo Voodoo, because they came out the same cycle.
Right.
And I will say, like, for me, that was like the first time I played albums the first time, and it was like
front to back, right?
Undeniable.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that was a major part of my education too. Like, as a musician, was Slum Village, D'Angelo, and Dead Prez. Because Dead Prez was like immediately just speaking the things that I never was able to articulate. That I felt, like my grandmother, Geneva Godot Tate, every time we would get together, would give us books by Yvonne Sertima. She had a library where her library was so thick, she had extras that she would sell on the side.
Wow. You
know what I'm saying? Yeah. So all the African history books, she would have like Farrakhan playing on repeat. That was like her football game. You know how people like soap operas or whatever? Yeah, so yeah, that was a major part of my education as well, just like my atmosphere that I was brought up in, and really being tied into the understanding of a lot of spiritual beauty. Yeah. I think that's what it really was. And moving to New York, I got introduced to a level of the music that went a level deeper. I started noticing that all my teachers were Buddhists. I was like, dang. And it hit me on different levels over time, And now I think that ties into mental health, and like how my professors were able to be professors has that connection of Buddhism to it, like that connection of meditation and that connection of, anicca, or the understanding of change and, sensation, and their understandings of the human anatomy was informed by ancient spiritual teachings. Yeah. And that's kind of what they were teaching me. Was in school, they're teaching me theory, but they allowed me to be around them, So like, I would, like someone like Oludara, he would invite me to his house
For those that don't know, Oludara is the father,
yes, of the great prophet
Nasir Jones.
Exactly. And Oludara was the type of person who would give me his entire record collection, all his CDs, then give me all his books, like all the autobiographies. He would walk to his library, go into the book section, and just start pulling out dope autobiographies and all his records and be like, take this. And then we'd have a conversation. And the conversation he'd have with me would be like, close your eyes, oh, close your eyes. Imagine the lighting. Is the room dark? Is it a blue gel? Is it a red gel? Okay. What country are you in? What's the seating arrangement?
Man, that's heavy that you speak to that level. I mean, I think for a lot of people, you might have just opened up, that, a Nasty Nas didn't just appear on the scene. He was produced, right, by this backstory, because you're talking about all these books and this rich musical legacy that was probably, that's in his DNA and his life experience. On
such a deep level. That's heavy. Someone like Oludara is not human. He's he's tied into a different realm.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's the beauty that I learned in New York. And I realized that Africatown cultivates. So it's not only in New York, but it took me being in New York because I had this reverence for New Yorkness.
Right.
But then to come home and be like, we got
ASCAP
meetings.
Right. And let's bring it back to you picking up your trumpet in the CD, right?
Yeah.
Central District, and really being brought in to a rich musical legacy, black musical legacy right here in this community, right? Yeah. Can you speak to like how, that black music legacy, in the CD also, impacted your growth and what that means to you?
I love that question because it's one of the biggest, like,
same streets that Q, the dude, right? And Ray Charles, you know what I mean? Like,
man, I'm gonna tell you, like, the central district is such a beautiful place. Africatown is such a rich, like, there's so much wealth here, bro. We're so rich. Leonard Rhodes, Herman Brown, Frank Brown, Jimi Hendrix, Acapulco Heat, Wheatl's Groove, Cooking Bag, Petronille Wright. I mean, oh my God, like Pops Buford. Like we're so rich.
It's deep, huh?
It's unfathomable. It's ineffable. You cannot describe that to somebody. Like,
a lot of people are not aware that the music,
bro,
has been growing like that in this particular area. A lot of people don't even know.
Let's not even go to the known ones. Quincy Jones and Ray Charles, and I mean, we got such a wealth of culture and deep rooted spiritual expression that's so precious, special. It's a certain thing we got going here. And my journey, my particular journey, now that my emotions have subsided, but my particular journey, I was blessed to be a student and follow Doc Rhodes. And
for those that don't know, who's Doc Rhodes?
So, Doc Rhodes is the man who gave me a completely different library of books. People like Yusef Lateef, he gave me the Encyclopedia of Scales. Doc Rhodes gave me the Encyclopedia of Scales and hit me to, hit me to this portal of thinking about things. For instance, he would say things to me like, the muscles that play soft notes are different than the muscles that play loud notes. And like for a horn player, horn players will understand, like, oh wow, that's like he opened worlds to me, that him, Herman Brown, Frank Brown, they would have a session every Tuesday and Thursday at the house, and we rehearsed basically what they called the easel. They had an easel, like what you paint on, and they had a list of about 40 songs, and they would play through them songs every Tuesday and Thursday, and all their homies in their 50s, 60s, 70s in the living room with horns, with baritone saxes, with saxophones, with guitars, basses, drums, right? And what I learned from that is, you don't just go do shows. Like, you meet up, like you have that fellowship. Like, a band is a lifestyle. It's a way of living. It's a way of life. It's fun. It's fellowship. It's like, that builds the music, that builds your soul, that builds your spirit. Like, and then that also, the way they did it, it was intergenerational. So it was like the OGs, it was the middle G's, then it was the young G's, and it was like young, even like babies was, in the atmosphere, and they're gonna pick something up, right? So it was, like village, they taught me,
like a village.
You can't, like, I
this
can't.
Is the village that raised you.
I can't articulate how much I can't. You know what I'm saying?
So you coming out of, you a true, I guess we could say, Pan-African baby. You know what I'm saying? Mm. You come out of this energy that, kind of gives birth to you. You bicontinental. I mean, we know you're universal, but bicontinental, having foot and roots that you know and you're in touch with, that run deep on both sides. You come to the
that's real. That's real.
To the CD, to Seattle, you pick up the trumpet, you go to the East Coast, you plug into that deep energy, then you come back. Speak about, and then at some point along that process of being back, you end up linking up with the artist Macklemore.
For sure.
And traveling the world, right?
Me and Macklemore met in Africatown at Garfield High School, and Macklemore, Casa Overall, there was a whole bunch of cats during that period. Peter Francis, R.I.P. Jamal Lambo, it was a whole bunch of cats like Evan Flory Barnes, all of us was at Garfield at some point, Chris Patan. But Alder is where all the rappers hang, and where all the musicians, the vocalists, the, choir class, the music corner. It's just the music corner.
Behind the legendary Garfield High School. That's what you're speaking
exactly.
About. Okay.
It's that corner is like where all the music happens.
Yeah.
And that's where all the magic,
man, that's probably been for generations.
You know what I'm saying? Think about that.
Yeah, that's heavy.
Yeah. So
sacred ground.
So that's how me and Macklemore met. You feel me? Isn't that so? Make a long story short, we meet again later on in life. I'm done with college. I went to New York. He went to Evergreen. He did his thing at Evergreen. I came back here. At the time, I was working at the Intel Clubhouse with another one of my great mentors, rest in peace, LaVersa Sullivan. And I was working with her. She employed me to teach audio engineering and do all that stuff. So Mac, I guess he was working in prisons and teaching literacy through rap. I was going through my first divorce in marriage, and I was in a place of like trying to healing and trying to get back to myself. And he was going through, his own battle with drugs and everything. So we really connected on a healing part of our path, right? It aligned in a healing way, right? And make a short story longer.
Word.
We started working together. He was like, "Yo, man, I'm really trying to take this to the next level, and I want to work with you." I was like, "Man, I'm down. Let's make it happen." And he just caught me at the right time. I'm rocking with Doc Rose, Herman Brown, and I'm like getting on
Fair
this
Cafe, right?
Fair Cafes popping everyday sessions, like
shout out to Liz.
And I was just in a very rich point in my life artistically.
Yes.
And I just had my second daughter from my second marriage, and it was a very potent and spiritually charged moment. When you have a child, yes. When you have a kid, how that feeds that passion. It feeds life. That. Yeah, it feeds everything. It's such a blessing, right? So I just had Anyango, and I didn't have her, but her mom had her. So it was like that period in life where it was fertile, and that fertility, to me, this is my perspective, manifested in, countless times around the world,
right.
And 4 Grammys and stadiums and 40,000 every day.
How we felt when we saw you on
Times Square
on those stages. Man. Like, man, that's one of ours right there.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. It was a vibe. That was created in the Central District.
And you did it with so much. This was salt and a swag. You didn't just go up and play a trumpet. You know what I'm saying?
We was playing the trumpet. You know how we played the trumpet. So that's what we was doing. Man. So that period was very, very much informed by the life I was living here. You know what I'm saying? Because I was on 29th and Jackson. Then I moved to the Valley, which is like the suburb of this.
Oh, wow. They ain't gonna like that.
They're gonna hate it. They're gonna hate me.
Don't like that.
No, but real cats from the Valley will respect my respect for Madrona. So that's too much. Mad respect, love. So that's what happened. Like, we went around the world. We did a lot, and it went from a point of being extremely grounded, right? Like living in Africatown. We had Red Apple. Go to Red Apple, whatever you need for, what I'm saying? If you need a haircut, you got Earl's. You know what I'm saying? If you need something to eat, you got the countless Ethiopian restaurants. You got Ezel's. You got, all these spots that are just here. Like,
right.
We have all the resources. And I went from this lifestyle of being very grounded to always being in a plane.
Right.
And never sleeping in my bed.
Wow.
And constantly on the move, and removing me from this meditative state. You would see me every day in the streets with my didgeridoo and my baby, like going with the baby, either the stroller or the front pack.
Exactly.
That's meditation. That's walking meditation. You're blowing air, walking, meditating through a didgeridoo with your child, giving. Right. That's so grounded, right? And it's cold because this, right?
Yes, sir.
So now imagine you do that every day. Mm-hmm. Now you don't do that.
Right.
Now you're just
disconnected.
Frontal lobe.
Yeah.
You're just no longer.
Man, and then just to go to that level of not just being on the move, but the celebrity, the bright lights,
that never affected me so much because I'm sincerely arrogant. I'm sincerely have a self-esteem.
Yeah, that's what I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. I'm not supposed to pretend like I'm.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Why would I do that? What's the point of that?
Yeah.
So I never felt like that affected me because my grandmother always told me, Geneva Godot Tate, she said, you should know the difference between where you're at. So if you get a compliment or if you get a diss, you should know for yourself. You shouldn't take that diss personally, and you shouldn't take that compliment personally. You should know where you're at. right? So I never saw that as meaning anything ever. You know, that never was gonna make me never, you know what I'm saying, and never entered the equation.
You getting escorted into the stadium. It's full. I mean,
my father's an ambassador. My mother's a dean. You know, like I was raised with drivers. You feel me? Like I had drivers. There was some house staff who would make my bed, who would clean my clothes. Somebody would take me to school. But it's
that
not
lifestyle. So you know, the child of a diplomat.
But
escorts.
I'm saying it's a different orientation.
Yeah.
When I came to the United States, for me to see, they said what did they say? A minority. I was like, what?
Right.
I was like,
everywhere you
how dare
from black people.
No, I said, how dare you call white people that? You know, it's why would you call? Because I was used to only seeing
the global majority.
I only knew I was the majority.
Right. Which is facts.
So I looked around and I was completely confused.
Yeah.
My orientation around what America is was flipped.
Yes.
Right. So that became a blessing and a curse.
Okay. Yeah.
That's really what it is. It's like, you know, so I never looked at the lights. It was more so being ungrounded, right?
Okay.
It was more so like not being in what nourishes my soul.
Right.
Because I'm a student. Now I gotta constantly take out my well, and I'm not replenishing my well.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
So, you know, I mean, we spoke about healing before from different situations. Man, as you move through these different worlds, which are major adjustments, I would still say, like coming from, you know, Africa to America, that's a major adjustment, you know, then going back to, you know, going to the East Coast, then coming and then going into just this world tour, right? Arena to arena, full, you know, mentally, you know, and then becoming a father, you know what I mean? And being a father through this time, like, you know, speak about, you know, how you have, you know, the rhythm of that as it relates to, you know, mental.
It's learning.
What wellness and
it teaches you so much, man. Like it's
ups and downs.
There's ups and downs.
Especially musicians.
You know, I mean, when you get divorced, that's gonna mess with your mental health. When the ground is wiped from underneath you, that's gonna mess with your mental health. You know, and that happens. That's basically for the past, I would say, like decade and a half has been my life. Is like this period of life, the season of life where I've had these quote unquote challenges or traumatic events occur in my life back to back, like constantly, like, and then a lot of great things happening too,
constantly,
right? Because so, and then also like all of that having to let it go.
To embrace the next.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? So I've constantly had to, the last decade and a half has just been, I've been it literally. So I had to really take a step back because I had to figure out what's the whole point of all this, like, quote unquote trauma. You know what I'm saying?
And success, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And success
the highs and the lows.
Success is traumatic because success from a young man, the way we define it is very masculine. You know, like now, like my mother said, Owuor, think with your heart. And that was a new paradigm for me. That was a new idea. Think with your heart, right? I'm thinking I'm young. This is the time. Let me work hard. Let me get money. Let me build businesses. Let me do as much as I can and expend that type of energy, right?
Hunt and gather. Huh?
And it's like that balance of yin and yang and getting back into like more of my feminine energy, right? So being able to, instead of going fast, think with the heart. You kind of have to like stop. You can't feel your heart if you're just busy doing so. You kind of have to like settle down to really pay attention to what your heart's doing, to be aware of it, to be in that level of attention, right? And I think that level of attention is what it comes with nurturing children, right? That's the level of attention that comes with being a healthy family member,
right?
Or being an effective teacher, or being an effective student or learner, right? Being effective as a human being, is being able to get back to that heart level and see things from your heart, So being able to view trauma from that perspective as well, and realize the opportunity it's presenting and the opportunities that it presents. And they're mostly, spiritual gifts, like, and it builds a capacity, I think.
Right. Man, this is good, getting into, various aspects and dimensions of our journeys, right? Yeah. Man, bringing it back to, you come out of your grandparents established themselves, in the CD and in Seattle. Yeah. Your mother, Dr. Marsha Tate, established, and a lot has changed, probably even since the time you came and grew in the CD, Yeah. When you look at those changes, and then, Africatown is doing its work around maintaining and preserving and building a future, for Black people, African diaspora in the CD in Seattle.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, about?
It's inspiring. Those are my thoughts. It's very inspiring. It takes it from this period where we had of despair, right? We had so much despair, There was a time in the Central District, in Africatown, in the Central District, in the CD, where when you saw a Black person that you knew, it was like, oh my God, like, where you been? It's like a sighting. Yeah. It's like, oh my God, like,
coming out the wilderness, right?
Bring it in, like,
coming out the wilderness, finding each other,
man, and it was it was a season of despair, like, where we were last of a dying breed, and this is so inspiring on so many levels, like Black Dot, everything happening in the communiversity, like everything happening around the housing projects, the community projects. It's just inspiring.
For me, it's like the phoenix.
It's inspiring, bro. It's like
coming from the ashes.
And I feel it's about that alignment. We're in the year 2020, and I feel like there's that cognitive alignment. In mental health wellness, there's such a thing as alignment and clarity, right? And then there's such a thing as cognitive dissonance, which is also something that exists in music, right? In music, dissonance is when sounds are discordant, like, they're out of tune, and they make you feel something visceral, and harmony is how I would explain this, is like, and harmony really is based on motion in music. Harmony moves things, right? And that's how I'm seeing this. It's inspiring because it's like, now you see this harmony that came out of the discord, because without the discord you couldn't see the harmony. You know what I'm saying?
Balance, huh?
Yeah, and
rhythm,
progression.
Right? That's just
it's progression.
Yeah,
and that's how chords move. They call them chord progressions, and so I'm seeing the harmony in progress.
Wow, you just paint a picture, just the music.
Yeah,
Africatown, or our community, our experience.
Ensemble.
As a music
ensemble, we're working in ensemble, in concert. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm seeing us as a model for society that's very musical. I'm seeing us as and that's not an original idea. This is coming from Sun Ra, who tied music as a model for society. And I really see us working musically, you know, and a lot of the people in our community that are leaders, Cherie and Brother Jabari and Brother Kalafani, and we know them all. Name
so
a few.
So many.
Name a few. Put shout out a couple.
Terrell Elmore.
Come on
you know
now.
What I'm saying we could keep going.
Goes down to
Sabrina,
Shakudi.
Chikundi,
Come on, man. It's very musical.
Yeah.
We moving in a very musical way. So those are my thoughts, and I think that's a good omen. It's a good sign. It's hope, you know.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Man. And speaking of that, you know, you since doing the world tours and all of that, you know, you established your own company, Arunga Music. You had a major bicontinental project, Music Never Sleeps, where, you know, you took artists, you know, speak about the Coke studio in Kenya, you know, went back to Kenya, set up shop, you know, did so many, you know, dope things. Can you speak about, you know?
It's so many things, Wyking. I can't even talk about them. This is
just talk about,
you know, like
talk
how
about Arunga Music. What's the vision there? Talk about Music Never Sleeps.
Man, Wyking.
Because that's major. People need to know about
music
how
never,
just connecting.
Music Never Sleeps comes from the idea. Well, originally I was interested in ownership. This my grandmother was passing away, and I thought to myself, like, man, I wanna do something and integrate the people I love, right? I want to integrate the talents of my sister, and I've always worked with my sisters. I've always, you know, Ebony Arunga, Nia Arunga, Geneva Arunga, database. I've always worked closely with my sisters, Soma Ayers, you know, Naomi Wamboe, you know, like Tiffany Wilson, Josephine Howe, even though she's Empress, you know, I've always worked closely with them in a business capacity, and Music Never Sleeps was about integrating that, right, and bringing that into concert and bringing the people I love to create a labor of love, right? And Music Never Sleeps kind of came from the idea of Wall Street, money never sleeps,
okay.
But changing the idea of value from a receipt,
right,
to the vibration, right? Music, right? And the thing about the vibration is, you know, and God said there will be light. So before the light came, God said there. So the sound came before the light. You know what I mean? So that's where Music Never Sleeping comes from. Like, it's being there, always gonna be here.
Right.
It ain't going nowhere. You know what I'm saying? God said. You feel me?
Man, you going in with it, man.
Yeah.
There's levels, there's layers, there's levels to this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So that's where it comes from. And for me, the person who brought me to that was Luis Reyes Rivera, the great poet, from the Jazzoites. He told me that God said there will be light, and Music Never Sleeps is about that journey and a snapshot of what that looks like in the day of a life, you know, a day in the life, right. You know. So we capture that on the continent.
But artists, like, just, you know, for people that don't know, a group of artists from here, right?
From here and from the entire continent. So in the film, you see Victoria Kimani, you see Ali Kiba, you see Kaka Sungura, you see Octopizo, you see Henani de Silva, Aphrodisia. So that's like Tanzania, that's Nigeria, that's Mozambique, that's like South Africa. That's you know, you see, like,
you shot this in Kenya.
Yeah, we shot it in Kenya.
Wow.
And it's basically like a day in the life of, like, a cracking bunch of months in Africa.
And for people that, you know, that don't know,
like, right? It's live, like, it's lit.
It's lit, right?
Yeah, it's super lit. And then so like, for instance, my sister's.
When is the film? That's what we need to know. When is the film?
They had the people
premiering in Africatown.
Come
when is
on,
that
man.
happening?
The people need
brother?
to see it. The people need to see it. This conversation
ask you now,
is inspiring me to put
you on
it
the
out.
record now. You know.
You know, the film isn't out, so this conversation is inspiring me to put it out, because we never put it out for whatever reason. You know, one of those questions you asked me earlier, it didn't come out, right? Yeah. So, you know, but now I think we're all in a place where we're down to, you know, that's like put it out. Yeah.
Man, that's dope. So speaking of films,
yeah,
we have, you know, a documentary, a film premiering, West Coast premiere, coming up next week.
Yeah.
You know, Digging for Weldon Irvine.
Yeah.
Right. And it'll be addressing, you know, his life and, you know, his journey and then we're going to have this discussion about mental wellness, right?
Yeah.
Speak about
on January 30th.
January 30th at Argyle Studio. So, you know, what's your perspective as a musician? You know, a lot of people don't know, you know, it's not a pop name per se, but a powerful story that needs to be known. So what are your thoughts about, you know, kind of that, you know, Weldon Irvine, how's it impacted your musical journey?
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, musicians have served as a channel for me, right? I've always used music to heal. You know, it's always been with an intention of healing others, right? Like, it's very intentional. It's purposeful. It's not like one day. No, it was like the master teacher was like, "This is what music is for," and I was like, "Okay." And then, you know, so I think in that in a spiritual context. And musicians are channels for me. And their lives serve as examples for me to channel lessons, right? So almost like I can enter their life, you know?
Right.
So like I when you find those parallels with somebody, you know, someone like Weldon, all the things that I've learned about him, thinking I knew a whole bunch of stuff, but then I learned everything I didn't know. Not everything, but a lot, you know? And I was like, wow. Like, it's like you're looking in a mirror. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I thought it was, you know,
it's like you're looking in a mirror.
You know what I mean? Because when I learned about him, and I'm thinking,
it's like you're looking in a mirror, fam.
That I know right now.
Yeah.
And definitely your name was one of those that came to mind. And
fam, I was like, wow.
To, you know.
So the ancestor, and that's how it works, is the art becomes ancestral. It's an ancestral art. And that's something I got from Dr. Joy Hardiman, is that element of the ancestral realm and what it plays in what we do, right?
Yes.
As a compass. You know, when we did the CD reunion, the first thing they did was pour libation and honor the ancestors. You know, R.I.P. all of the ancestors for, 10 minutes. You know what I mean? And that's really what we doing is ancestral art, and it's manifesting itself in so many ways, whether that's informing you, whether that's healing you, whether that's giving you a mirror to look into and be able to compare and contrast and figure out what you could take away, where you might be able to see bumps coming in the path, where you might be able to see opportunities coming in.
Indeed.
And the omen that it serves when you come in, when that crosses your path, right? So that's what Weldon has been for me, is like an omen, a mirror, that kind of experience. When you're making ancestral art, which Black music, Luis Reyes Rivera always told me is music of the spirit. Mm-hmm. You know, like Black music is music of the spirit, and that resonated with me. And the spirit of Weldon is what's really moving me right now.
That's heavy. You know?
So
why do you think, you know, just in general for, you know, non-musicians, just the community in general, we have a lot of issues going on with our, you know, being out of tune, I think, mentally with our best selves. Yeah. Why do you think it's important for people to come out and see the film and participate in this discussion that you'll be one of the key voices in?
Yeah. I think we could all agree that there's fluoride in our toothpaste, there's fluoride in our water, there's aluminum in our deodorant. There's uh, there's anxiety in our beef. So like, what's all that doing? Like, I believe personally, what it's doing is it's getting us away from our feminine brain, like being to intuitively think and to like go out of balance and kind of like put reason and logic on a pedestal, right? So the way I see it is, we're easy to herd. We're like sheep. It's easy to send us that way, send us this way, because the way I think of it is mental health is clarity. Being able to like not just use your brain, but use your senses and know, and now give your brain something to do that's in context with what's happening in your life. And I believe it affects us all because society has been affected. We all use Colgate toothpaste. We all have water coming out of, the taps. We all, I have been removed from like drinking spring water and like nature. And that affects who we are as human beings on a very, very deep level. It shuts off our insight. It shuts off our chakra system, like a lot of things. It shuts off our ability to communicate with power, or to communicate even truth, or to be calm, so we're all affected by mental health. I think we can all agree that we're suffering a certain degree of anxiety or a certain degree of cognitive dissonance, and we're all affected by that. And the way to get through that is becoming more educated about it, learning more about it, learning more about yourself, learning more about what's going on with you. And a good way to do that is through the mirror of others. And that's why I think it's like important for people to come to this thing, is because just the way the world is making us, I don't want to say crazy, but it makes it a challenging place to live in mentally. So it's important for us to take it as a priority, to prioritize our mental wellness, to actually not put it as like, okay, I'm gonna go to work, then I'm gonna be mentally well. But before I go to work, I'm mentally well. Then I go to work. Then after work, I get mentally well again so I could be at home. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and then after I get home, before I go to bed, so I'm mentally well in my dreams, I get mentally well again. And I think it's more evident than ever in society, on the news, what's happening. Like, and you asked the loaded question, so I'm going to answer it with a lot of ammunition. We live in a society that's completely narcissistic. When you turn on the news, you're being lied to, and you're being lied to, but you have to believe the lie, and it's shoved in your face. So it's like, that'll make anybody crazy. That's gaslighting. Like, you're being forced to believe a lie. You're being forced to eat it. So we live in that type of world. You feel me? So that's why I think it's important. It's more important now than it ever has been to address that trichonomics is at an all-time high. Done.